So I would like to open this session now, and I'm very happy that we have today our Zoom participants and also our YouTube audience. And today, this is our sixth democracy talk. And let me introduce myself. I'm Diana Trevino, project officer at UCAN. And here in the session, we also have Democrat partners participating. And of course, our guest speaker, who is Georgios Kostakos. I'm very happy that you joined us today. And today we will listen about COVIDEA, the COVID Education Alliance. And Georgios is together with Verle Vandeweert, the executive team of the COVID Education Alliance, and he's also director of the Foundation for Global Governance and Sustainability. So, Georgios, I send you a very warm welcome, and I'm happy that you joined us today. And I would like to pass over to you. Maybe you want to introduce yourself just briefly, and then you can start with your presentation. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you very much, Diana, for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here with colleagues and friends who care about these issues of education and citizenship and all that. And yeah, I have the honor to present also on behalf of Verle Vandeweert, a colleague from the UN. We both have a United Nations background. We did things in New York and Verle also in Nairobi. She did with UNEP and UNDP, the UN Environment Program and Development Program. I worked with the Political Affairs Department of the UN and the Office of the Secretary General, and we worked a lot on the Sustainable Development Goals in the 2000s and the beginning of the 2010s to also the Paris Agreement. So we had in mind all these targets for the international community regarding the environment, society, the economy and the governance, how we can improve the conditions of life for everybody. So we are proud to have been part of this process that led to the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement, etc. What we saw in all this is, of course, the importance of learning and of bringing young world citizens to this so that they can really benefit from the new reality that's emerging from the digital transition, the green transition, all these things that the world is facing, the challenges, but also the opportunities created through our response to those challenges. And COVIDEA was born from the Foundation for Global Governance Sustainability that I represent, and of which Verle is also a member, and here P40T, that was an organization that she had before. During the COVID years, we felt that, you see, the transition now is forced on us, the digital transition. Are we ready to use it, especially for educating the younger generation? And is it done the proper way? Are we focusing on the right things, the priorities? And that's how COVIDEA was born during the COVID years. That's why it reminds me of COVID, and we have thought of changing the name because it's not a pleasant name, perhaps. But I'll tell you more. May I start my presentation now?
Yes, please.
Great. So I'm going to share this, and let me know if you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Great. So you see also the name of Verle and the Platform for Transformative Technologies, P40T and FOGS, the two organizations that joined forces to create COVIDEA. COVIDEA was built on, as I said before, the understanding that during COVID, we saw that if 150-year-old education system in the West, at least, we have the same way of teaching and organizing schools, etc., for more than a century, and it's not geared towards the market economy or these transitions that we face, and we have to make opportunities out of them for the younger people in particular. So, and for everybody, because we need retraining, upskilling and all that for also, and lifelong learning for everybody. We see, therefore, that we need to change our way of teaching and learning, and how we do that ourselves as learners, and how the system, the education system, does it for everybody. Lifelong learning is very important. And we started by saying, who are the main stakeholders in this? How can we really influence the system by really talking to the right people? And we saw that we have, of course, the persons who are the students, the pupils on the right. Of course, the teachers educate them. The education ministries decide on the curriculum, often at a national or regional level or local level. Then we have education organizations like UNESCO and other establishments, professional associations of the teachers, of parents, of course, also have a say in this, employers, what they need for their workforce. All these people and organizations should come together to redefine the ways and means of doing education. You see it on the left and the outcomes on the right. And for us, the important thing was to redefine even the purpose of education. Why do we want to educate people? Okay, building knowledge is always important, but in the past it has been done like accumulating knowledge for people to become like encyclopedias. But can they build character out of this? Meaning, can they understand who they are and how can they be productive citizens and happy citizens themselves with agency to influence their environment? How can we build judgment in people? Can they tell between fake news and real news? Can they tell when somebody is trying to cheat them online or in person? That's very important too, especially nowadays with all the rumors and everything that is circulating around through social media, etc. Can we build resilience in people? Because there are shocks one after the other. There is climate change. There was the COVID-19 pandemic. There are financial crises. Can people really see what is the essence of their living and where they can build these redundancies or the capacities of networks, of contacts for their own psychological resilience, economic resilience, survival, even in terms of supply chains of basic material, like it was for COVID, the protective material, and of course, always food and energy and all those things. And finally, how can we build social awareness and responsible citizenship in people so that they feel that they're part of the community and they get engaged and they engage others? This, for us, is the new purpose of education, which goes beyond building knowledge, which was in the past the basic purpose of education. Lifelong learning is really also very important for work, society, and self-improvement. It's not like we finished school 12 years or 15 years if we go to university, 16, and that's it. We have to learn all the time because things change every day, almost. Okay, so we now see that we have new tools and pedagogies to do this, and we have to see how we can do it by changing the curricula, the content of the studies, by changing the delivery tools. We can use virtual reality, augmented reality, gaming, games for learning and good purposes, not only for wasting time. Sorry. Learning support also through AI can be good, it can be bad. The artificial intelligence we can discuss. Assessment and verification, you can get microcredits doing a course online, which will strengthen your credentials for professional reasons. And of course, how you can also manage education online, how you can really do courses online and all those things. All these can be now are being transformed by the digital transition, but it's good to be aware and improve them systematically. And the COVIDEA approach, of course, is connected to digital with purpose. Is another initiative that both Verle and myself participate in. A big summit is coming up in Cascais in Portugal next week. Digital with purpose brings together the ICT sector, the information communication technology companies which work on education, either making programs or services or equipment. And we try to encourage them to have in mind the Sustainable Development Goals where they produce their things, meaning if they produce a game, not to be just to spend time, but also to leave behind something positive about society, the economy, the environment. And we coordinate with the organizers of Digital with Purpose and this summit that's coming up to encourage and give incentives to private sector partners to come on board for this effort to rethink education and repurpose education for the digital era. Among the projects that we are pursuing with COVIDEA is to develop national roadmaps for transition into digital education. We are trying to see which countries are interested to align also their education with the SDGs, to build on the UN SDG road mapping program, which is something Verily is very much involved in. And we cooperate with UN agencies and other partners to see how these things can be done. We also thought of this COVIDEA Agora as a meeting place, a place where the stakeholders that I presented to you earlier meet to think about the education and the elements of education and the tools to improve education and civic engagement. So we thought that this Agora is a platform online, and you can see it more here. Like it has a cafe in the middle where people come together to see their peers. Students can meet students, but they can also meet professors and others. It's something in the making, and I'm glad that the Democrat Project has taken up part of this concept of the Agora to create its own Democrat Agora, which is along similar lines, bringing the stakeholders together. For the Agora of COVIDEA, we have a gateway here on the left. Then you get a color, your avatar gets a color according to your group. If you are a parent, if you are a student, if you are a teacher, then you come to the cafe, you can find your peers, you can find people from other groups, and you can discuss issues and exchange ideas about good practices, ask questions, and consult on the right, this library, right? The curated material on how to build resilience, how to build citizenship, how you teach those things, but also you can do AI searches on these things and other things. We can have a digitarium, which is where you can see videos on the use of various technologies. How can you use artificial intelligence or, let's say, virtual reality to teach something? And you can also play games in the gaming alley down here. Again, games for good, games with a purpose. You can go to company showrooms where you can see what this company or the other has developed in terms of products. And then you can also go to the stakeholder offices and you can have the students again having their offices, virtual offices there, the teachers, the parents, etc. So this was about it, an overview. And we're glad that the Democrat has taken on, through the participation also of Fox in its partnership, some of the elements of COVIDEA. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgios, very much for this presentation and to show what COVIDEA is doing. And I think it's a really challenging topic also, how to promote digital technologies in a way that they are used in the right way and that they are used for making things better in relation, for example, to develop democratic or humanistic competencies in students, but also in teachers. And I have some questions now for you, but I also would like to invite our Zoom participants, but also the YouTube audience to join in our dialogue now. If you have comments or questions you would like to address to Georgios. I maybe start with my first question. And what do you think, Georgios, from your expertise and your point of view, what are the key challenges, but also opportunities in aligning policymakers' goals with innovative educational practices?
Thank you, Diana. This is a crucial question indeed. Policymakers at the purely political level, and of course at the education ministry more, let's say, administrative level, of course, are set in their ways. They want to please their audiences, which can be voters, can be teachers, can be parents. So it is a challenge to really persuade them. So they are pushed, though. They're pushed from many directions. Like for COVID, they had to switch to digital teaching, right? Digital learning, because there was no other way. Otherwise, the pandemic would spread even worse with the kids in schools. So they had to do it. Of course, they are also pressured by companies who want to sell their products, and they are pressured by the market and the economy who want people with certain skills, which cannot be the classical things that we did in the past. So it is always a struggle. It is an understanding that there is resistance and the speed is not as, let's say, high as we would have liked. And all of this, and one good thing about the policymakers is that they have to think of stakeholders because there are various constituencies. So they may not move very fast, but once they really see that there is a mood in the right direction, they will do it eventually if they get the right signals. And I think eventually they will do it and they're getting the signals. I was talking today to somebody from Cisco, the company, you know, the big company, and she was telling me about an agreement that they reached with the European Union, the European Commission, and the Department of Commerce, I think, of the US, to do online training courses for people to get used to AI and other things, free online courses. And those will be somehow you will get credits and they'll be recognized. That's a big issue, right? About the official systems withhold the credentials. They tell you, oh, you did this online, but if you don't go through certain steps, you won't get a degree, it cannot be recognized, you cannot get a job, or you cannot work for the public sector. Now these things are becoming a bit more flexible, right? We don't want it to be completely flexible, perhaps, because then whoever can claim that they did an online course and they know everything, and then they go and make a mess in the workplace. So there has to be a method of accreditation, but it may not be what we know always, the exams, the certain way in schools, etc. So there is more opening. So I think there is hope there, but it is a challenge still to combine the two. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Georgios. I don't know, do you have any further questions in our Zoom? If not, I have more questions. I would like to focus now more a little bit on the contribution COVIDEA has on developing humanistic and democratic values. And my question is, how can technologies like virtual reality and also artificial intelligence or gaming, you mentioned, improve democratic education in schools? Maybe you can give some examples or ideas.
Yes, of course. That brings us closer to the Democrat Project, of course, and its goals. And that's fair enough. You can, from virtual reality, for example, we have a colleague on the COVIDEA broader group who is from Finland. And in Finland, they do a lot of forward-looking studies. What will be the needs in 20, 30 years of the society and of education and all that. But he also likes to go back. For example, if you want to go back to the Athenian democracy and feel like you are together with Pericles and you talk about this, or you have the Peloponnesian War and the Spartans, I'm one of them, I come from Sparta. So you can really feel history and you can see their mistakes or lessons learned in a more experiential way through through virtual reality than you would if you just read a history book. Mm-hmm. And there you can really perhaps learn better the mistakes of history and try not to repeat them or be aware of the problems. Another thing with artificial intelligence, of course, is it can be used in more than one ways. It can replace research and the work of students, and they can just ask the machine to write their essays, or they can also get more research done, broader sources, and then compare and help themselves build their understanding, bringing together elements that they would not be able to find themselves, for example, right? So they can cross-check their own research and thinking with other broader things that the artificial intelligence can put together. There are good and bad ways of using technology always, and I think for education, for democracy in particular, this active citizenship is very important for us too, because even in gaming now, games are often now collective. You're not playing on your own, but you connect with others and you create an online community of gamers, and then you play together. That is also an exercise in responsible citizenship. Of digital citizenship is almost as important now, because in the past people thought I would go to the internet and Facebook and we can put whatever we want and we can build another persona. But now, I mean, you have at least to have the same moral codes of not misbehaving in by abusing others or whatever, also in the digital realm. And that is something we have to be trained for. And that also increases, I think, the responsible democratic citizenship of people at all levels, not only for their country, but for the world, because these groups can be cross-border groups. Young people connect across borders for some of these games.
Thank you for the examples. This is now I'm coming to maybe more the critical questions. What do you think? What do you know? Does COVIDEA also undertake steps to ensure that technologies such as digital tools and artificial intelligence, that there is protection of privacy and of freedom of individuals? Is there also a related work you focus on?
Yes, I have to say we're not as developed in the sense of interventions, but of course we're more like a niche project to conceptualize what needs to be done. And of course, privacy is a concern. And we have our primer, which is, you can find it on the Fox website. If you saw my last slide, fox.org. If you go to COVIDEA, there is one of our projects. You can see in the primer how we approach things. And of course, especially for children, their privacy is very important, and schools and others try to protect it. And that is expanding to the digital realm, although it's not as well organized there yet. So we do promote it, but we don't have specific tools yet. But when we work with others, like Digital with Purpose, for example, and we work with companies there, and we try to create ways of ranking them and their products if they are according to standards of the SDGs, and also they respect the personality of the person and of the kid. We use also the UN Convention for the Rights of the Child, for example, and we have the colleagues from Parents International, who are also members of COVIDEA and of the Democrat Project, and they insist a lot on the rights of the child, which goes beyond just privacy. It's how you treat kids and how you reward and how you approach them in general.
Georgios, we have now a question in the chat from Carsten Krüger. He wrote, the big problem of all online activities is that the internet is dominated by economic interest, digital capitalism, which make it difficult to, just a second, to see how democratic and humanistic principles can be transmitted broadly.
Now, I understand this question. Of course, the whole market economy, whether it's digital or not, is based on profit. And for us at Fox, we want also to change the narrative of globalization to make it more human-centered and well-being centered rather than profit-centered or power-centered. And that is a big struggle and goes beyond the digital, but of course it's manifested in the digital realm too. That's why we have to build the judgment and other elements of citizenship so that people can react and they have agency, which I think is a big thing for the Democrat project too, to feel empowered, the learners, the young people, but even the older ones, that they understand how the system works, not in all technical detail, but at least they can tell who's trying to cheat them, who's trying only to make money out of them. They all want to have a job and there has to be an economy that works. But the purpose of the economy is really, yeah, can be a better life for all humans. Like for the SDGs, we say nobody left behind, no one left behind. Or it can be like the system mostly works now. A few individuals get super rich, also using the digital platforms that they create or they pay to create, and then the others are left behind. That is a struggle that we have to continue and do with all means. And our democracies in the West at least had that element in Europe of a social economy that put people at the center of it. I have a sense sometimes that we're losing it, but we have to fight for it. Otherwise, nobody guarantees us our rights, right?
Yes, absolutely. Carsten's comment is continuing. He says, we know from historical experience that at the beginning of the internet, there was a hype thinking that internet will contribute to deepen democracy, but this never happened. So we need to be very skeptical.
He's right again, because, yeah, of course, we thought that the internet would make instant decision making by everybody almost. But that is also, I believe that is a false perception or an idealistic but wrong approach that people have to decide all the time on everything all together. And that is not possible, but also even not desirable. Not everybody is interested in everything all the time. Many people just want to have a secure environment within which to live and to be consulted on questions that they care about. But we don't all care about everything, and we cannot be all up to date with everything. So, I mean, this techno idealism created also techno disappointment. And we have to be aware of that in the next stages of digital evolution. We cannot expect everybody to be at the same level of interest and engagement in all these things. But at least we should not break up too much in fragmented pockets where people talk only to people who care about the same things. That's a danger, because you can create a group on one of those social media platforms and then talk to each other and reinforce sometimes wrong ideas, right? So there has to be a way where we all come together as communities, physically and digitally, but also at the same time, other partial engagement for our interest. I mean, I don't expect everybody to like science fiction like me and to talk about it. But if there is a group I would like to join, then you join me too if you like it. So anyway, we have to find the balance between the individual and the collective. And that's always an issue also for digital means, I think. Yeah. Sorry. I don't know if I
No,
answered.
this is very good. And I would like to ask you maybe my last question. This is, you can answer this also personally, because I wonder sometimes if there shouldn't be also a kind of recommendation or limitation in the use of digital technology, especially in school settings, because I'm not a researcher in this field, but I can guess that there might be also a loss of competencies through an overuse of digital tools.
You're absolutely right. And what we said in COVIDEA, what we have as resilience is very important, because I see that for kids, if they lose the connection to the internet, for example, or their parents or their own cell phones don't work, they don't know anything or they are lost.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to do exercises of, let's say, internet-free days and see how you can think for yourself, multiply for yourself, and cook for yourself and all these things. resilience is very important, because if something goes down, the data centers get fried by solar radiation for some reason, etc., we will return to the Stone Age, because we will have forgotten all the in-between stages of development. So it is important for resilience to limit, of course, our dependence, or to have alternative ways that we test regularly of function as society and as individuals without so much reliance. Digital is a tool again. The ultimate purpose is to have individuals who are happy and interact happily with each other in peaceful societies, right? And you can develop, I mean, learn more, develop your skills, play music or write, whatever, do whatever you want, or create machines if you like. But yeah, not to be dependent on any one technology or any one supply chain. And I think that sometimes we ignore at our peril, because we will see if something goes wrong, and it will inevitably go wrong at some point, like we saw for COVID again, when trade stopped, or because or all protective equipment like masks were made only in a few countries. Then when those countries closed the borders, everybody else was lost. They didn't know what to do. Or where vaccines are made, if there isn't in each continent vaccines factories that can make those vaccines, you cannot rely on one or two factories in the US and one in Europe to make vaccines for the whole world. So resilience, including in the digital sphere, is very important, has to be tested and practiced. And for that, the kids cannot be dependent only on that. But of course, try to restrict your kids. I see my nephew from playing all the time and doing this. We have to make non-digital things also interesting again, like nature, and then right, talking about things, not only watching things on screens. It's a challenge, I would say. What
Yeah.
do you think? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Georgios. Well, I have no more questions to you, but maybe you in Zoom have any questions you would like to address to Georgios? In YouTube also or not?
Thank you, Georgios, for a great presentation and very inspiring talk on the way how you approach education, especially in the context of citizenship and civic responsibilities. And we know that it is not only about resilience, but also about agency. And I wonder whether you could also talk how you approach within your project the agency, especially of students, how you can use the tools you produce to increase the agency of students.
Yes, indeed. And it's big for Democrat, and it's big for us in COVIDEA. Agency, by bringing students together and making them work even online about common interests, it's also about influence that area of the common interest. For example, if it is about, I don't know, an artistic thing, or if it is about doing philanthropic things, or about, even playing together, or including other kids that are not the same social class or nationality. If you have these mixed groups, all these things are kinds of agency, but also creating leadership, and that is another big thing, because you need leaders at all levels, and that I think we have to develop more. Meaning that people have to not to be afraid to tell their opinion, and to be able thus to stop, for example, the development of a vicious cycle of violence. That is something we're working on with other projects too. There is an approach to violence that says that it spreads like a disease, like a pandemic. When people get infected by violence, infect others because they create a tension in the society, and that really can be generalized into local conflicts or even a bigger war. We want to create, to enable people to feel that when they see some people are sick with violence, that they can raise their voice in the right way, they can cool things down. And that's a kind of agency also. We want people to feel comfortable to deploy that kind of agency. Another area, as I said before, is these groups of mixed people from around the world, digital citizens, coming together to play games, but also to see, compare. In my country, this happens this way, the other way. Let me bring good practices here. Let me do that. If you go to the cafe, if we make that agora, and partly it's part of the agora of Democrat. So there are ways, but I think we need to work more on that. Agency and leadership. Yeah. Thanks, Marta.
There is always the danger to normalize things that shouldn't be normalized, I suppose, Georgios, because we get used to absolutely anything that is given to us. And unfortunately, there are so many bad examples that are around us that then when something is not that bad, we think, well, we are not that bad because it could be worse. But that is not the objective that we should be aiming to achieve, I suppose.
Yes, of course, you're right. And sometimes we have to go back to basics and think, as I said before, what is the purpose of all this? Do we get really well-being out of this, or do we get a society that is harmoniously working within itself and with the environment? We have to ask that question. And some people, I'm going back to ancient Greece, which is my tradition partly, which Socrates was saying that he was like a fly on the body of Athens. Athens was like a cow, which tended to get sleepy if left alone. But he was like a fly, or, like a wasp or something, like biting the cow to wake it up and realize that, oh my God, if I continue to sleep, the society won't work anymore. Something like that we need. And I think the Democrat Project or COVIDEA initiative, some individuals also, we play that role. I'm trying to play it, even if it's not popular, to remind people in a good way that there is something more to it and not what we're used to. We agree.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Georgios, and also for you, Marta and Carmen, for joining our conversation. I think this is a good moment to end the session if we don't have more comments now. I just can say thank you very much, Georgios. I think this was a very, very inspiring session, also to rethink how we use digital tools and what are the benefits, and how maybe that we must somehow use digital tools and use them in the right way in the end, because we live in a world that is changing. Before I close the session, I also would like to announce our next democracy talk. This will be on the 17th of July, and we will be listening to the University of Krakow. The topic will be announced soon. And so thank you for all your participation, and especially to you, Georgios, for joining today.
Thank you for the invitation, for your company and discussion together. Thank you.